Viewers, Namaste viewers, welcome to Jaipur Dialogue USA and आपका स्वागत है जैसे हम हमेशा रिक्वेस्ट करते हैं please like, subscribe and support our channel, spread the word and give us your feedback which makes us gets to know what you are thinking about what we do. Okay, let's get going. Today I wanted to talk to you about a very significant topic, very relevant for Indian Americans in America, and very important for Indians in India, parents and children who are coming to study here. Remarkably important, whether you are coming for a job or a study here. I'm going to talk about how a US government agency virtually, surreptitiously, openly, in a vile manner, in an illegal manner, tried to attack you and I by smearing us with the caste war. I call it how the US government agency waged a war on caste with Indian Americans. I have great pleasure in welcoming today to talk about that issue a gentleman, Mr. Sundar Iyer, who was, I don't know how he endured the 3-4 years of constant barrage and attack and defamation of all the things that he is not. Sundar Iyer is a known name in America amongst Indian Americans, and it's time for Indians in India to know about how he withstood the entire problem. Sundar ji, welcome to Jaipur Dialogue USA. आपका बहुत स्वागत है. So I wanted to tell you also that you can switch in and out of Hindi English as you wish, as you are comfortable. We are bilingual definitely because we do our shows in Hindi and English both. So जैसे भी आपका convenience हो, जैसे भी आप fluent feel करें, उस हिसाब से आप बात करें. लेकिन tell us about your mental state as of now, having survived the SB 403 and the 3 years of continuous attack. जिस तरह से आपकी बदनामी की गई US government agency के साथ ने किया उसका. How do you feel now that SB 403 is not in play at the moment?
Well, first of all, Vibhuti Ji, thank you for having me. There are multiple topics here, right? SB 403 is a caste law that was pushed by caste activists using my Cisco case as sort of the main bulwark, if you will, right? So the law itself has different aspects, in terms of the data the activists use for pretending that there is widespread caste discrimination and using my case, using just the allegations as facts. And that is just ethically wrong, to say the least. I'm glad the governor made an ethical decision in SB 403. And there are a lot more things to discuss on the law itself. My immediate focus in the question you asked me was really my mental state, as you asked me, on the allegations in the case. So first of all, I just wanted to let your viewers know the Civil Rights Department claims that I have discriminated against a Dalit engineer. What the CRD hid, and this is what is extremely wrong and sad, is they hid the fact that every position in my group, every leadership position in my group was awarded by me to another senior candidate who also happens to be Dalit. I had hired a colleague, a senior of mine from IIT Bombay, fantastic guy, extremely meritorious, extremely hardworking, brilliant. I've co-founded companies with him. And he was awarded all of the top leadership positions, including my own CEO position. And Joe plaintiff, the other person, John Doe, the plaintiff, even the position that the plaintiff says usko nahi mila, was also given to this other senior Dalit candidate first, before any complaints of caste discrimination. The CRD has made over 100 despicable actions in creating this case. And I've only given you one of them, which is hiding this from the judge, from the court system, from the press, from the activists. and creating this lawsuit in 2020 to feign caste discrimination. So मैं आज इसीलिए बात कर रहा हूं to the whole audience because ये गलत है. What an agency does to hide, mislead people, to lie, and I believe they even committed perjury, is wrong. A state agency should not be doing this.
आप जो कह रहे हैं ना कि state agency should not do it. Should is the most dangerous word in English language. In terms of should, so many things should not happen, but they do nevertheless. So
Yes.
the point of the matter here is, जैसे आपने कहा कि they concealed information. Now, tell me one thing, because we believe in government. This particular agency is California's Civil Rights Department, right?
Yes.
California civil right is a big thing. California sets the standard and the terms of engagement.
Yes.
तो अगर वो एजेंसी जो है इस तरह से इंफॉर्मेशन कंसील करके किसी एक खास व्यक्ति पे, जैसे an entrepreneur, a technology expert, you are not a riff-raff guy, you are an IIT product, creme de la creme, right? You are in Silicon Valley, you are set up a company, you are paying millions of dollars to people, yet they attacked you. I want to, when I asked you your mental state, I definitely want to hear how you fought that.
So when you talk about mental state, so first thing I want to set up is the fact that I'm from an IIT or I've been an entrepreneur. I want to discount that here. Look, what I've achieved is I'm happy to have done what I have done in life, but its relevance for they coming after me, that's their prerogative, right? I'm human. I mean, I'm not any better, superior, or worse than I think of myself as a human. Now, mental state wide, I want to put out one thing first. I'm not a victim. However, what they did to me, I've gone through several terrible days. I've woken up at 3 to 4 a.m. in the morning, 4 days of the week or 5. And the stress they put you through, the public naming and shaming, the lying, the working with activist agency, the Twitter feeds and stuff. These are all extremely terrible things. I grew up in India, and the good thing about growing up in India is India teaches you a lot. It's a beautiful place where I always say India gave me two beautiful things: opportunity and adversity, right? And that what toughens you up and makes you grow. But nothing makes you ready for the level of worldly naming and shaming that these people do. Now, the reason I'm fighting this today is I say this in a very honest way. If roughly a third people who are being put through what I was put through may end their lives, and I actually mean this honestly, I do not want the CRD to be ever able to do to somebody else what they did to me. And that is why I'm fighting this, amongst many other things. And so, I'm lucky I've had a strong constitution, fantastic friends, and, really good family and support system. But others do not have that luxury. And what the CRD has done is criminal in several ways, and I have objective data to prove it.
You talked about the data part. Like one of the things that bothered me, we have done a couple of programs on Jaipur Dialogue and Jaipur Dialogue USA chapter, of where I am leading that entire effort, talking about the data part. I know we have talked about it quite a few times, and we have two data sets of data. One is Equality Labs, other is the Carnegie Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
How did the Civil Rights Department, CRD, chose to rely upon a false, bogus Equality Lab report, totally ignoring the Carnegie Foundation, because there is no comparison between the authenticity of Carnegie and Equality Labs? How did they do it? Who was triggering that entire thing?
Yeah. No, I mean, Vibhuti Ji, it's an extremely sad thing, right? I mean, even keeping the Carnegie information aside, just take the Equality Labs report. You have a state agency that doesn't care about the fact that you have an unscientific report. Equality Labs report says it's unscientific. I mean, we've discussed this so many times.
Yes.
The sampling is biased. It's a web survey. You cannot find the identity of the people. There's no way to verify this information. They say that roughly 10,000 Dalits have been physically assaulted or raped in America by upper caste Indians. And all of these come from the Equality Labs report with no semblance of police records, right? Equality Labs can do whatever they want. I've always said this: give the lady a Nobel Prize. You're a private organization, you can lie, good luck to you. But a state agency has an ethical charter, has a legal charter, more importantly, has a moral charter, and even more importantly, has a human rights charter. आप इतने 8 बार कोर्ट में आप झूठ बोलने के लिए तैयार हो, right? That is what equality, I mean, the CRD does. How dare you go and say upper caste Indians have committed 10,000 physical assaults and rapes with no semblance in police records, right? I cannot fathom a prosecutor sitting at CRD doing this. This is so wrong and morally untenable. I'm actually surprised that these people come up to work and do this. I mean, if this happened in my company, I would fire my staff immediately. About how a state agency can use a report as bad as the Equality Lab survey. Right? They used it 8 times in courts, using statistics that have no semblance in police records, using a survey that itself says that it is unscientific. They themselves say that, right? And worst of all, the targeting, by the way, of Indian Americans is not just based on the survey. They have more than 20 xenophobic comments on Indian Americans. Upper caste Indians are dominant, hostile, inherently violent to Dalits. They don't just target Indian Americans, they target Indians, they target Indian immigrants, and Indian Americans in 3 different chunks, right? They even use the NCRB data in India, the caste violence data in India, without caring about what the Ministry of Home Affairs tells you about the data. The MHA says, do not quote this data as caste crimes. We don't even know the identity of the perpetrator. We don't know necessarily the caste of the perpetrator. We don't know the veracity of these crimes. We don't know the severity of these crimes. If the crimes are found to be unsubstantiated, we don't remove them from the statistics. There's a whole sequence of, and many of these crimes are lower caste on the lower castes, right? Yeah. But you use all of these statistics and say they're all being done by the upper castes on the Dalits and they're inherently violent. It's nonsense. They know that, right? The CRD thinks they're greater than the Indian government. They've just suppressed all of the Ministry of Home Affairs information saying, please don't use these statistics the way you shouldn't be using. So that's the CRD for you in a nutshell, right? The xenophobic comments, racial targeting of Indians, targeting of Hinduism. I mean, just to give you a sense, I am irreligious. They interviewed me. I said, I don't follow any religion. And they said, TK, let's give this guy a Hindu and Brahmin identity and then target Hindus, right? Wow. So let me double click on the CRD strategy. The primary manager on whom all these allegations are based upon is irreligious. So let's assign him the Hindu religion and target Hindus. It's that blatant, right? And these facts that I'm giving you is one amongst more than 100 things that the CRD has done, right? And I'm looking here and thinking, how much can a state agency lie, right? At what point does the governor wake up and say, this is broken, this is wrong? So
it is what you said earlier on, should not have done. It shows the viciousness of the CRD people. And after all, it is the people who administer the entire process. Were they brainwashed in your interaction with them? Did you feel that they were vindictive because you were an Indian and a Hindu or whatever? Or they were brainwashed into targeting you as the guinea pig? They chose you as that.
A fantastic question, Vibhuti Ji. Let me answer the question in this way, in an objective way. Rather than me speculate about, their state of mind, I'll give you a couple of factoids that made me realize that something really insane is going on. Okay. So they made all these, they have come up with random facts. And they'll say the group is entirely Indian. The complaint says, we've given them HR records. More than 20% of the group is not Indian. Another 15 to 20% of the group is Romanian. I had an outsourced team from Romania. They don't care. Group is entirely Indian. Just to put a fact, John Doe is the lone Dalit. Not true. Everybody's upper caste. Not true. Right? You just throw claims that make no sense. Now, during this conversation, during when they came and put these claims, they made a claim that John Doe has low pay.
Has
How
what?
has low pay, has low
Oh, low
compensation.
pay. Okay. Okay.
Now, this is all public record, but John Doe was being paid millions of dollars. Okay. And I was CEO in this startup, right? This is my fourth startup. I gave away all of my equity to all my employees, including John Doe. So I'm making zero in equity. The guy makes, more than $4 million in comp, right? The CRD wants to sue us because he didn't get a $5,000 salary increase. We are beseeching the CRD saying, "Hey, boss, please don't do this." And by the way, the data on this is even more sorted. I told Cisco, cut it from my salary and give it to him. Okay. Cisco obviously gave him a salary increase. You can imagine a large corporation saying, "You really want to bitch and moan about under $5,000 and want to string it? Okay, we'll give you the increase," right? There's a lot more history on this low pay claim that they have hidden. But just the very fact that you have a guy making millions, and by the way, he made more income than the two other, managers in my group who were all the three managers in my group. He made more than that. Is that sad, right? But the state doesn't care. They hide all of that. They will pick one salary cycle and say, "तुमने उसको ये salary increase नहीं दिया," hiding everything else. I'll give you more, Vibhuti Ji. This is what I said I need to jump in. The CRD has hidden complaints from three women engineers. They will not interview them. The CRD has hidden complaints on John Doe from a white engineer. They want to suppress that. They hide complaints from a Hispanic engineer on John Doe. Suppress that. Hide complaints from my Dalit supervisor. Suppress that. Hide complaints from senior engineers. Suppress that. Hide complaints from every supervisor. Suppress that. Hide 2.5 years of HR records to make claims of retaliation and discrimination. How much are you going to lie? In fact, I would like to address Governor Newsom here. Governor Newsom, are you the top dog in California? And if you are, I ask you this question: how many lies are you willing to allow an agency to get away with? How much damage do you want the CRD to cause you? Right? Just an open question. Because all of this data is, in fact, many of the things I've told you is already in public court records. Right? So that's what I'm trying to understand with my journey, right? In fact, I would like to propose a radical theory to the members of Congress and the Department of Justice, a very radical theory to Americans, which is, should a state agency be speaking the truth? Right? Apparently, this theory is so radical that people just want to sit back and not take action. Right? So that's the mind-boggling part.
It's a mind-boggling part because you are asking virtually the impossible, the government not to lie.
Yeah, the government not to lie.
Like this, because yeah. Go ahead.
And if you take any one aspect of this, forget everything else. I've asked the governor's staff, is it okay for the CRD to hide the reports from three women engineers just to make a case of caste discrimination? They will not interview the women engineers. Is it okay? Just take one thing. How do you send your mothers, daughters, sisters, wives? How do these people go to work in California if the civil rights organization wants to hide information? I have a simple question. I don't have answers. How do Indian Americans go to work at California if the state agency targets them mercilessly as dominant, hostile, violent, the people who think they're biologically superior and inherently violent to Dalits? How do you work in a state where the state civil rights organization caricatures you as a group based on bullshit data with accusations of over 10,000 physical assaults, right? So, and these are one-way comments. The most mind-boggling fact to me is, by the way, they're still trying to extort money from Cisco, right? Fine. So there's some pending litigation. TK, there's pending litigation on certain things, but certain things are not pending, right? You have made one-way comments on Hindus, one-way comments on Hinduism, one-way comments on violating the Constitution. These are one-way actions by the CRD. Why are they not being held responsible?
Tell me something. It definitely sounds that a very vicious, deliberate attack was done, but virtually making us sound like a dehumanized kind of people. That is very seriously bothersome, because we are not that. So if some government agency uses a bogus data to virtually dehumanize us, how does how does the Silicon Valley engineer crop, I would say, the group of people who are there? They didn't respond to this. Wasn't there an uproar? Here we see that for a minor violations of this kind or that kind, communities rise in revolt. What
Correct.
happened to the Indian American community that was being dehumanized in such shameless, false, bogus way, and there was
Yeah.
no revolt? Your thought?
So there has been a partial revolt. So there has been an organization called California for Justice that sent, I think, thousands of letters to the governor, and they actually sent letters to the CRD asking for
Yeah.
explanations. The CRD, is basically God. They have no reason to answer to anybody. They will not answer. They've sent letters to the governor. We've not had any meaningful response from the governor's staff, right? So you have engineers who have, there's a change.org petition that was sent. So, some of it has happened. There's also a lot of apathy. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of Indian Americans are busy with their lives, doing great things, creating value, creating wealth, and they all are in a cocoon. Look, I was in a cocoon. Let's be honest. I spent 20 plus years in Silicon Valley. It is beautiful. You're building stuff. You're creating value. You're doing things, and you do not believe for a single moment that a government agency can be this insane, to say the least. And I use my words very carefully, right? I try to find the best in every person, including in the CRD. I would like to give the benefit of doubt to as many people as I can, but when I look at things logically, it's nothing adds up in their behavior.
That's very disturbing, actually. And do you think, in this sense, this kind of they have violated the civil rights of Indians and Hindus?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question. Actually, it's way more than that. And let me get to violations of civil rights. So, first of all, there is the First Amendment violation on Hinduism, right? So, first of all, you pick Hinduism. I don't know why. I am irreligious. Why bring Hinduism into this? But they found a way to do that by painting me Hindu. TK. So, you've done that. There are about 20 comments in Hinduism, about us, caste being a strict Hindu hierarchy, about how Hinduism treats castes. There are comments on, there are book chapters being sent in talking about why people have moved away from Hinduism to other religions. The state is not allowed to do that, right? There are book chapters talking about Varna, being a bad concept. There are statements about the complete destruction of Brahmanism, wink, wink, nod, nod. That's code for Hinduism. All of that crap. There's more than 20 such things. Look, I don't take offense at any of these necessarily, because for me, um, offending me is a very different bar, right? I always say offense is given, not taken, right? I'm sorry, what am I saying? Offense is taken, not given,
Yeah.
right? Now, what is wrong here with the CRD is that this is a government agency. Look, a private person can say whatever they want about Hinduism. That's the beauty of Hinduism. The Hinduism allows debate, right? But a state agency is not allowed to do that. So that's constitutionally wrong. That's number one. Second, the CRD went about assigning religious practices to people. So, it assigns me a caste. Now, they called caste as a Hindu practice, that they cannot assign me a religious practice, right? By definition. They've started comparing the religions of, castes of different people. They assign my whole group as upper caste. Under what context? They've not even interviewed them. The CRE doesn't care. There are due process violations. You've not even interviewed people before you paint them all as castes. They call my whole group as Indian immigrants bringing the caste system with them. Not even interviewed these people, but here's the rub. You're taking the one group where the position was given to a Dalit, and you're calling that group as upper caste and casteist. It's insane. So there's that. Then there's the xenophobic comments on Indians. There's the racial targeting of Indian Americans. It's a whole echelon. By the way, it's not just Hindus. Let me give an example on Sikh Americans. I have a Sikh colleague. The CRD calls him upper caste. Under what basis? I don't know. Now, the CRD puts information saying Sikhism has broken away from Hinduism because Sikhism doesn't believe in the caste system. But if you say that and you assign upper caste to a Sikh colleague, what does it mean? Right? Without ever interviewing him. So, I mean, the CRD doesn't give a shit. Right? It's like a bulldozer saying, I'm judge, I'm jury, I'm God, I shall do whatever I want, I will hide whatever information I want, I will target Indian Americans with gay abandon. And that's really what they've done.
Now that again brings me back to my, inquiry that I made earlier on. CRD is also made up of people. I mean, it was not that they got up one fine morning and they said, okay, here is Sundar Iyer, target.
Yeah.
Here are Indians, there are Hindus. Let's take panga with them.
Yeah.
Or let's get the equality lab report. So my thought process, I always like to go at the roots of it. How did you come across any evidence or any such sign that the people in CRD were manipulated to do that, to launch such a vicious false agenda? This is like you have often expressed, horrified shock that how could a government agency do this? So
Yeah.
my inquiry is, who in CRD got motivated to do this, and who was motivating them? Any idea on that?
Yeah, so Vibhuti Ji, I would like to believe, at least in the early days, there is probably one or two bad apples, right? But what I have realized, and I just give you statistically clear data, we've come through 8 prosecutors in this case till now in the last 2.5 years, and including one, and Kevin Kish, who's the head of the CRD. Let me give you the whole ballpark here. 2 of the top prosecutors who brought the case have been fired. They were fired by the governor on their actions on a different case, right? Janet Wipper was the chief prosecutor who brought this case. She's been fired. And by the way, none of these 4 prosecutors who brought this case have ever interviewed me. They've never ever interviewed. I mean, they seem to know a lot more about my group without even interviewing me. It's amazing, right? You can bring such case, and by the way, we've given them copious data. I've myself given them 50 plus box folders of data on John Doe and the actions and HR records and people's complaints. They've hidden all of that, right? So this is not somebody who's inadvertently done something wrong, right? This systematic, right? So these are those 2 prosecutors. The remaining 2 prosecutors are in the same cahoots. Nothing has changed. When the top 2 prosecutors got fired, they continued all of their claims, right? Whether we had to file a motion to sanction these prosecutors in January of 2023, right? So nothing changed when the top 2 prosecutors were let go. Now, we have 4 new prosecutors from 2023. Did anything change? Absolutely nothing. When we filed a motion to sanction them, I cannot even tell you this because CRD has all these one-way confidentiality games, litigation privilege, pending litigation, one-way confidentiality, mediation confidentiality. It's a whole bunch of ways in which they can cover themselves. It's amazing. I cannot even tell you the Al Capone-like actions that the CRD will do to cover its tracks. In fact, right now there's a pending motion to sanction the CRD prosecutors, right? So, and it's continuous. They will. My short answer to you is it's not a single person within the CRD. Everyone I have met till now, it's mind-boggling. I'll give you one more example. Kevin Kish is the head of the CRD. Okay, I will give you just one example of the man. There was a lady, I believe her name is Ariti Ramaswamy. Okay, she files a change.org petition in 2020, about 4 months after the case was filed, and she's completely emotional about the case. Right, a Dalit has been discriminated, blah blah blah. She writes to Kevin Kish. Okay, Kevin Kish knows every position has gone to a Dalit, right, which they hid. He coolly replies to her and says, He sends her off to the California legislatures to push caste as a protected category. So you have a man who's the head of the CRD willing to lie and suppress, right, the fact that every position in this group went to a Dalit, to weaponize a normal young girl who believes that major discriminations happened, calmly lies to her, sends her off to California legislators to push law to make caste a category. What do I say? And this is just objective data. This is all public, by the way. Right? You have a man who's supposed to be heading civil rights in California, lying to a citizen, hiding information from her, weaponizing the case, not even telling her that every position was given to her. Make alcohol, right? Let the facts speak for itself. And that is my journey today. I am not even calling the CRD any names. I just want to speak the truth. It's not even truth, by the way, these are facts, right? So facts are even stronger than truth, right? They just are. There's nothing about it, right? Like the fact that John Doe was compensated millions of dollars is just a fact, right? The fact that John Doe is making more money than other folks, still bitching about low pay, it's just a fact. The fact that Kevin Cage wants to lie to Aditi Ramaswamy is just a fact. What do I do?
That's a very interesting thing you said, that facts are stronger than truth. My Guruji once told me, facts can be opinionated, truth is unalterable. So that's just a thought to you on that.
Yeah, I
And
mean, here
I,
you
I
have
was,
laws refer to facts as sort of inalienable truths, right?
yes,
So, for example, if someone didn't apply for the job, by the way, John Doe has never applied for the position that he claims discrimination for. Just FYI, one amongst the many facts. We told this to the CRD. You're suing us for discrimination. He never applied for the position. It's just a fact, right? It's
wow.
inalienable. It's not his opinion versus my opinion. It's just
Correct,
his.
correct, correct. Yeah. Yeah, but we are not discussing truth versus fact because it can be again an opinion. But
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
important part here is that he very rightly said that who was this John Doe? Do we know his identity now?
I'm sorry. What was the question?
Do we know the identity of John Doe now after
Oh
the
yeah,
case?
we do know this identity. I mean, I've known it all along,
Yeah,
and
you
the
of course
judge
you have
actually
known.
ruled. Sorry.
You of course you would know because
Yes, yes, yes.
yeah.
And
So
the world knows it now because the judge ruled against his anonymity request in November of 2023. And so it's out there. I never take his name. I've never. To me, this is not even about John Doe. As in, being hit by employment lawsuit is unfortunate. It happens. So I never care about taking his name. I focus on the CRD, right?
okay,
Because you have a state
would
agency
you
that's
be able
doing
to say
all of
that he was so well compensated, he had done well, and you said it that he was a good guy and he was competent. What was his motivation to go against you, despite getting everything that he complained about?
Yeah, so obviously, when I hired him, look, he is a batchmate from IIT Bombay, so he has a certain amount of competency, and that's the only reason why I would hire him, right? I was hiring people on merit. Remember that competency is just one amongst 50 dimensions of a human personality, right? Or 100 dimensions, right? Just to put this in perspective, does the guy coming to work on time is a dimension, right? Is the guy involved in work? Is the guy passionate about his work? Are there aspects of his behavior that others are complaining about him, right? And there's so many complaints on John Doe, which I'm not going to go into the details of. And but is he insubordinate, right? You give him a feature, is he going to do that feature or not? So there were many aspects of John Doe that were problematic. In fact, this is well documented under HR record that he was insubordinate. He wouldn't do the features that he was told to do. But how do you deal or work with such an engineer? So I don't want to go into the details of John Doe, but of course he had a basic level of competence, right? And that is not a reason why someone can become head of engineering, right? That's the thing. Now, what was his motivation? Look, I have some very clearly articulated subjective opinion about people. I'm not going to put that subjective opinion out because I'm going to let the objective facts speak for itself. But let me put it this way: there are some people you can do the earth for. You can do what you can go out of your way, and they will still hurt you. Right? It's just life. Um, I have this much I can say. So I have, just to give you a sense, given the man leadership positions. I have given the man my own person to work in his group. I have hired for him. I have recruited for him. I have done his architectural things for him. I have fixed his bugs. I've done a lot for the man. I've held, protected him from other complaints from other people, right? He still wants to attack me. There's nothing I can do. Yeah.
Okay, coming back to the same thing, I just want to go to another subject here because we did several programs. I did several programs in this, talking to, you know, Hindu American Foundation. Suhag Sukla was fighting big time. Then Kona was absolutely top class in its own, support to you and spreading the word around. So was Richa Gautam of Caste Files. They all people worked very hard to make this cause take it forward. Now, here is a very interesting element. Sanjay Dixit ji and myself, we had a talk on this show, on this program with Asha Jadeja Motwani. And that's the point which I wanted to share with you. She said in the show that what was shocking, that even after governor's veto to SB 403 caste bill and everything else, she said that she was shocked that more than 80% of the Indian Americans were not even aware that this was going on.
Right.
Now, this bothered me a lot. And I wanted to ask you, Silicon Valley Indians, prosperous, well to do, how did they become so apathetic, uninvolved, unawares in an era, in a time and era when I always say this, my phrase is that when news travels faster than the speed of lightning, euphemistically speaking, how come they didn't know? They were so unengaged. Tell me something about it. I want to know that. If I come to Silicon Valley, I want to talk to some people about how did you not get engaged with this? Tell me more about that.
No, I mean, it's a great question. And look, the community, especially in California, is quite focused on work, on technology, startups, and of course, there's a lot of other people, right? Doctors and whatnot, and of course, normal workers and stuff. There's two aspects of apathy. One is, of course, their business with their lives and so on, and the second is they don't understanding of a civil rights law and the way laws are made is something very few people understand. Look, I didn't know this for almost 1.5 to 2 years what a benign law looks like, what the backroom politicking happens in pushing these laws, and the consequences of these laws. Look, I've always said this, I don't take a hardline view on the law on caste, right? Every conversation should be had in its ethical manner, right? The caste conversation was based on extremely fraudulent data, two legs, extremely fraudulent data, and a constitutional conversation that's not been had and is not being had by actors who are truly distrustful, right? And there's a lot more I can unpeel there. But the common person is apathetic either because they're A, too busy, or actually they're aware, but they don't understand why the law is bad in the avatar that is being presented in. So there's two aspects. For example, when people talk about caste, very few people know the state of California defines caste as Hindu in their textbooks. It's the state of California. It's not a neutral term. You have this concept of neutrality in law in America, where a law cannot target a particular religion or ethnicity or blah. But the reality is, wink, wink, nod, nod, caste is always associated with either Hinduism or South Asia or India, right? You don't have a German manager who can be accused of caste discrimination, right? So it's not a neutral term, it targets ethnicities by definition. Now, that doesn't mean that the law makes sense or not makes sense. It just means that a conversation needs to be had in an honest vein. And people don't understand what targeting is and what the consequences are. So, but apathy in Indian Americans is pretty much the same as any community that becomes successful or rich. Our most privileged people tend to be richer and more cocooned from reality. So.
That's well said. I wanted to, since you talked about the Indian American part of it, I wanted to also ask you, and is that gone is the era in which Indian Americans coming to study here, paying 40, 50, 60, $70,000 per annum for an undergrad study,
Yeah.
We know now, we have seen the case of 11 or more Indian students have been victims of deaths, killing, and murder, right? This is happening on one hand. One thing is also clear that Indian students coming to study here are not going to be beneficiary of automatic green card, which was available until some time ago, not now. Uh, is there and what is going on in the schools, like you said, that they define things in the manner that I say that the wokistani attitude that goes on in schools and colleges these days. What's your advice to a parent in India or a young man or woman coming to study here? Is it worthwhile? Is it worthwhile, or should they take factor this issue as a consideration in making a decision? Because that's an important consideration to do. Where am I going to? If I'm going to California, study in California, just as Sundar Iyer ji could become a target, any Indian can become a target. And as you know, in the system that we operate, targets are picked. You have no choice about becoming a target.
Yeah. Look, I think this is a very broad thing for children. We pick an age group of, 12 to 29, right? And young people, it's very easy to brainwash them. And the brainwashing is actually pernicious, right? It's pervasive and pernicious. Look, the media will not report the truth. Activists do not want to report the truth. Academia will not report the truth. I've seen this in my own case. And just to give you an example, and then I'll answer your question, the fact that you have a case in Silicon Valley where every position has gone to a Dalit is being used and weaponized as a prime example for caste discrimination. Nobody wants to report that, right? So, our children, the first thing we need to tell our children is you are being lied to, but don't take our word for it. Here are a bunch of examples for you to know. Look, I never thought the media would lie this badly. I never thought that academics would lie this badly. In fact, I'm looking at caste data even from India. It's shocking how the data is being manipulated. It's just shocking, right? And so, what we need to do is to teach skeptical thinking to children. Look, children have to come up with their own understanding of the world, but we need to push skeptical thinking to them, give them data, make them read reports. I mean, New York Times is a perfect example, right? Or Washington Post with its austere religious scholar for terrorists or whatever. They've got to be exposed to this. They got to be exposed to the other side. They got to be exposed to the fact that they're being misled in many, many ways. And that conversation every parent needs to have with their kids, whether the kid goes to school in California or goes to school in India or wherever. Remember, the brainwashing is the world over, right? Because of the internet and so on.
Right.
So we've got to have these very tough questions with our kids very early on. But most importantly, teach them critical thinking. The important thing here is not to say that we are right and they are wrong or vice versa. It's to say, look, this is what critical thinking is. Don't follow the masses just because it's cool, or don't follow like the New York Times because the word New York exists, right? Your Jabalpur Daily may be giving you more truth than the New York Times, which has a pretense of a great organization. So, and
Very well
similarly,
said. Because there is a need to, as I always say, protect and defend our way of life. Our children are the one thing, and I do know on a first-hand basis that the first generation Indians who have now become grandparents and whose children are in school, they are a very concerned group of people because they seem to have lost their children. So they are dealing with an authentic scenario of Hindus in name only, right? So this is the challenge. And, Sundarji, I wanted to mention to you that this war is real, as you rightly said, and we have titled this entire thing. When the government agency chooses and picks and chooses and targets a particular community and wages a war against them, unsuspecting people, and that is supposedly the one of the successful group of people,
yes,
that means nobody is safe.
yes,
And with keeping that into account, this war is real. So I want to implore upon all the viewers today, get ready, get ready. because you are living in really uncertain times. I won't say interesting times. You are living in uncertain times. And for us, it is incumbent that we support each other, support organizations that fight for us and they stand for us. And to Indian students who are coming to study here, I won't say don't come to study, but figure out what exactly you are coming to study here for. And that's what is important. But you said very important word that you use of critical thinking. Trust and verify. don't
Yeah.
don't believe that just because it's on internet it is truth, but internet has a lot of bogus stuff on it as well. So
Yeah.
verify and do that. Sundarji, you are welcome again to talk about this, because this matter is not over. Our platform is available to you, and I would want you to come and talk with Sanjay Dikshit and myself on Jaipur Dialogue Main, because our purpose here in the Jaipur Dialogue USA is to awaken the Wokistanis. Come on, smell the coffee, see the reality. So thank you very much for joining today, and best of luck for your incessant fight. I want you to know you are not alone, and there are people behind you. As I always say. So trust us. We are here to fight for you, with you, alongside. So with these words, I implore upon people. I always end my show by saying, Satyameva Jayate. And for truth to triumph, you got to stand for it. You got to fight for it. Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Well, thank
Thank
you,
you.
Vibhuti, for having me. And I want to say the same thing. It's the truth that needs to win. And for me, this journey is not about me. It's just about the truth. And when the truth wins, people win. And the saddest thing I want to end on this note is the CRT is lying to Dalits and Dalit Americans. They have the most to lose when they are not being told the truth. And that to me is the reason we've got to fight this even more amongst all the other reasons.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because on our show, we have had Dalit representatives with Kohna and others who said this very clearly, that CRD did not talk to us. And this particular thing hurts us more than we are able to imagine. But that's a conversation for another day, and we will have that conversation. Thank you once again, viewers. Please like, subscribe, and support Satyamev Jayate. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.